Good morning. Welcome to the October 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Interim Joint Committee of Economic Development and Workforce Investment. Apologize for the slight delay in starting the meeting this morning. Ran into a little traffic on the parkway, but I appreciate your patience. We have a very full agenda today, so without ado, we will get moving. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Boswell.
Here.
Senator Funky Fromar.
Present.
Senator Girdler.
Here.
Senator Howe. Senator Madden. Senator Nunn.
Here.
Senator Thomas.
Here.
Senator Wilson.
Here.
Senator Wise.
Here.
Representative Bowling. Representative Callaway. Representative Duval.
Here.
Representative Elliott. Representative Gentry.
Here.
Representative Griffey.
Here.
Representative Grossel. Representative Huff. Representative Jackson.
Present.
Representative King.
Present.
Representative Calcarney.
Present.
Representative Lawrence. Representative Lehman. Representative Lockett.
Present.
Representative Payne. Representative Sharp.
Present.
Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Truitt.
Here.
Chair Wheeler.
Present.
Co-Chair Branscombe.
Here.
Let's see, and I have been informed that we do have a quorum. I can have a motion for the approval of the September minutes.
I'll move.
All right, do I have a second? All right, second from Senator Nunn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, so as I said, we have a full agenda today. And first up, something that I'm a big fan of, Buy American. Representative Flannery, if you and your guests would like to approach the lectern there and identify yourselves, and please proceed at your leisure. Thank you.
Representative Patrick Flannery, District 96, Carter Lewis, and a portion of Boyd County.
Chad Conley, United Steelworkers Rapid Response Coordinator.
Dustin Reinstadler, President, Kentucky State AFL-CIO.
And Chairman Wheeler, we do have another guest that will be giving his testimony online.
Fair enough. Please proceed.
Yes, I would say thank you we're glad you are here, even though a few minutes late. You're not going to take the opportunity to brag about yourself, but probably all that new road construction in your district. So you're going to have to start allotting more time to get here. I guess that's a good problem to have on that parkway. Last year I proposed, I believe it was House Bill 345, the Kentucky Buy American Act. It was previously sponsored by Representative Blanton and maybe for a couple years, and I think perhaps the deceased Charlie Miller when he was serving in the House. Today I want to talk about the concept, not particularly the nuances of the bill, because I believe the concept is something that many members of this committee would support. Generally what it does is it promotes, gives preferential favor on public construction jobs to the use of aluminum, iron, and steel. I think this is very important, not just for having more jobs in America, but having good quality materials that go into our public construction jobs. I live in a district that has suffered mightily from the collapse of the iron and steel and aluminum, perhaps not as much aluminum, but definitely iron and steel. I see Representative Sharp, who the old AK Steel, Armco, partially sits in his district, along with Representative Aaron Thompson, had several constituents that spent an entire lifetime working there. And we want to get back on track and be sure that we're making these products as best as possible. This is very important, like I said, not just to promote more jobs, but to really have a revival of that entire industry again. I have talked to several folks about trying to find ways to improve this. The last thing that I want to do is have a bill that is too costly and puts too much of a burden on taxpayers. So I really want to find that sweet spot that makes sure that this is not something that makes our public construction jobs too expensive. What I have found is that there are actually several states that have passed, I guess what I would call the concept of what we're trying to do here, trying to look at those to figure out the best way. It's a wide variety of states. It's been promoted in Oklahoma, Illinois, Maryland, Louisiana, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, which is maybe the purplish of states out there. It has a really unique legislature that goes back and forth in the House as to who's in the majority, but that's something that they found common ground on. Virginia, Missouri, and Maine. All these states have passed or have had similar pieces of legislation on this topic. If there's anyone on this committee that has concerns, please let me know. I'm not married to the bill that was previously filed. I'm definitely open to any sort of changes or improvements to make this better. So I definitely welcome that. I've had a lot of constructive criticism and feedback that I think is really important. And really what I want to do is make sure we can get something across the finish line that makes these products in America again, so we can use these and get people back to work. Obviously, to my left and right are two gentlemen that represent workers that want to make these products. And then online we have a gentleman that works in the metals manufacturing industry. They want to make these things in the United States, and hopefully we can make these products in Kentucky. We have a fairly solid aluminum industry. We have a very rich history of steel, particularly in my part of Kentucky, and that's what we're trying to do in this bill. So I will turn this over to Chad, and please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Kentucky Buy America bill is an opportunity to revitalize American manufacturing and ensure that any contract accepted for government public works projects in the Commonwealth contains a provision that iron, steel, aluminum, or manufactured goods used or supplied be manufactured in the United States. Usually a state agency would seek the lowest bidder when awarding a contract, allowing foreign producers to undercut U.S. prices and win awards. State preference laws like this one can change that practice to require governments to accept a bid that might be marginally higher than the lowest bid, with the knowledge that money spent will be circulated back into the American economy. This act creates new sections of KRS 45A, 56, and 65, requiring that state and local contracts contain that provision. Click this to the next slide. So it establishes the procurement perfection preference for U.S. goods. There are process for waivers. For example, one of the things that tends to come up, people ask about stuff that is not manufactured domestically. This bill would not apply to something that is not manufactured domestically, obviously. And it operates within our international trade obligations. Kentucky has opted out of the GPA, which a lot of Europe and Canada has also done, which means that we won't violate any international agreements by passing such legislation as this. It reinvests tax dollars into the local and national economy, provides growth, expands the tax base, creates more job opportunities for middle-class Americans and hopefully Kentuckians. More jobs means less demand for social safety nets. maximizes return on expenditures, invests back in the local economy. It promotes factory expansions into Kentucky and nationwide, and levels the playing field for domestic manufacturers who comply with U.S. environmental and labor standards, but compete against unregulated imports. Right now, our laws are creating jobs in China, India, and other countries. It strengthens China's defense industrial base, and the spending conflicts with our own public priorities: clean air, water, safe work environments, job creation. Tax dollars reward companies that shift production overseas right now. Compliance with proposed Buy America laws mean existing compliance procedures with federal requirements. Kentucky already complies with the broader federal rules on federally assisted infrastructure projects. Federal Buy America laws have been in place for decades. The 2021 Build America, Buy America Act expanded existing Buy America rules to cover all projects and cover all materials and manufactured products. The Kentucky bill that was previously introduced is weaker than the federal requirements. Dozens of states have Buy America laws. The Representative Flannery went through those states just a few minutes ago. We were a very big part of passing that in Virginia last year. In the last 10 years, Colorado, Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, New Hampshire, New York, Pennsylvania, and Texas all joined the Made in America movement, and other states are close behind. It's been discussed here for probably at least 5 years now, maybe longer. Supporters of this are the United Steelworkers, the Alliance for American Manufacturing. 82% of taxpayers agree that taxpayer dollars should go to American products, and Presidents Trump and Biden both advanced Buy America policies. The legislative history here: Representative Flannery introduced it in 2025, Representative Blanton introduced it in 2024, and Representative Miller in 2022. These were the co-sponsors last session. We can provide all this for you. I'm not going to read through them, but that pretty much concludes what I've got.
Representative Flannery, did you all say you had somebody online that wanted to
We do.
chime in?
He should look. It appears like he's on there.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Could you please identify yourself for the record, and you may proceed.
Absolutely. Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to be here today, as well as just to participate virtually. My name is Mike Buckington. I'm CEO of Metals Innovation Initiative, and I was with you all a couple months ago when we talked about some workforce and raw materials things that we're working on. So once again, thank you for allowing me to be here today. I have a long career in metals, both iron, steel, and aluminum, not just in the U.S. and Kentucky, but also throughout the world in my career. So I'm wanting to really just talk about where I think the metals industry is in general. There has been significant investments recently in the metals industry, and I would point to what everyone can probably relate to. Just in Kentucky, there's been significant investments by Nucor Steel. They started up a new facility in Brandenburg, as well as they continue to expand their facility up in northern Kentucky. North American Stainless as well have continually grown their facility up in Carrollton. Right now, I know they have a several $100 million investment going on. And then in the aluminum industry, of course, at Logan, where I worked, Logan had almost $1 billion of investment over the last several years. Novelis has significant investment going in Berea and Guthrie. And then throughout the rest of the U.S., there's a lot of investment going in as well. In general, the area we're talking about, construction, just in general, I would say most all products are made in the U.S. There might be a few that aren't, but they're very few. And in general, in addition to that, I would say that the U.S. industry, metals industry, produces products at the lowest cost and the highest quality when you compare to our competitors throughout the world. As already mentioned, sometimes material offshore, I would just say, does come in. A lot of times that can be at a lower cost. It may be because it's subsidized in some way. But even so, we tend to be pretty competitive on all of those situations. I think part of the story here this morning is just considering supply chain integrity and reliability. I think that's becoming more important. You hear a lot about it in the news. You probably hear more about it in some unique areas such as rare earths and others like that. I think it is a broader picture and a broader story here that, anything that we want to have as part of our national infrastructure, security in any way, we need to make sure that we have those supply chains that are I guess I would say that they're solid. I would say that they're solid so that we're not depending upon a supply chain from another country. And yes, I covered it a couple of months ago. I'll mention it again. It's already been stated in the slide presentation, but I do think we have to really look at China because they tend to really try to eat away at some of these things. And I think it's something that is just a bigger picture in play that we really gotta focus on it. The metals industry in general is very good paying jobs. They're some of the highest jobs of any industry, very, very good compensation. And as you know, we're really working the workforce path to get more qualified candidates into the metals industry, which I think is obviously a very, very good thing. And as I stated a couple months ago as well, Kentucky's doing great, not just in manufacturing overall, but specifically in metals. We continue to grow, we continue to invest, and we're one of the leaders in the nation right now in metals and in manufacturing. So all in all, I think a really good story, and I think whatever the state of Kentucky would need in terms of metals for construction, for projects, I feel very confident that in many cases in Kentucky, but if not in Kentucky, in other areas throughout the U.S. would be able to be provided in supplies. So with that, those would be my main comments, and I'm certainly available the rest of the testimony here for any Q&A.
Okay, thank you so very much. We do have some questions, and we will go first with Representative Grossell.
Thank you for this presentation. Very informative this morning, and I really appreciate the discussion, particularly as we work to reindustrialize America and continue to support our manufacturing workforce. I'm wondering, recently Nippon Steel made a huge investment into U.S. steel, and some would argue really saved the company in that way. Would you see that purchase of steel from Nippon Steel as fitting in with this Buy America proposal that you're suggesting, or how would you see that acquisition?
I guess I'll go first on that. If it's made in America, I think it would fit into that in that regard. I know there have been some discussions to try to even perhaps find a way to have a preference for Kentucky-made iron, aluminum, or steel. That's something we'll have to work through. So in that regard, probably it would not fit into that. But as to the general concept of trying to have things that are made here, I think it would, regardless of who the owner is or who works there. Obviously, my preference on all this is that all of this would be made in Kentucky. But I think the overall concern, as long as it's made in the United States by good actors, there are a lot of concerns when this is made offshore. Not just the quality, but how the interplay with defense issues and all that other stuff. We're talking about products that are very important for public safety. When you have rebar that may go into concrete, iron cables that are used on transportation jobs, steel that's used in very large, steel beams in very large buildings. The quality does matter. So I guess there was some controversy about that, but this is not I'm trying to find a way to be sure that we are doing things that are in our economic interest in this state, but also be sure that we're doing things that are truly in our interest nationally for national security reasons as well.
Thank you very much, Representative Flannery. Representative Branscombe.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all today, and I think this is a great idea. Representative Flannery, you and I talked about this a little bit last session. Just a couple questions. Mine's more on the kind of how the process would work. When you look at the waiver, who grants that waiver?
In other states, that has been done by the process where the purchase orders are approved. So whatever internal structure Kentucky has for, we're going to spend this much on this project, that you all can pretty much legislate that however you wanted to, but that's how it's worked in other states.
Follow up?
Briefly, please.
Yep. Okay. So, and I'm looking at this from the contractor end of it, trying to determine, like, from the contractor standpoint, is who's granting that waiver on the front end. Like when I'm bidding the project, and I know that I have to hit this goal of made in America. Who's granting the waivers for the supplies or the materials that's not being manufactured in the United States? I guess that's what I'm getting at.
I think that's a legitimate issue. The process is important. As I said, I think whatever is filed next year, in the upcoming year, is probably not going to be the same as this, same concept. I'm very welcome. You have much more knowledge on maybe how all that works than I do, and okay, many other members of the General Assembly. So I want this bill to work. And if there's something in this that you really feel like, hey, this is a better way to make this work, I'm very open to that. I'm not stuck on using the same language. I'm actually trying to figure out what some of these other states have done and try to make it best as possible. So that's very legitimate concern, and I would definitely welcome your input on all that.
Okay, because I want it to work too, but also I'm thinking about the bidding process and how we would navigate that, because it's pretty important to have that buttoned up pretty tight. So thank you all.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Flannery and Chad, Dustin. Good morning. Thank you, Mike, for your testimony. Representative Flannery, thanks for bringing this bill again. As you know, a supporter of this idea. As you know, and as you're finding out, there's different layers to this sort of topic or idea. We have to be careful how we construct this. I've always said that one of the most important things in the jobs we do as legislators is we have to create an environment where businesses want to invest in this state and can operate, and at the same time create good quality jobs, because putting people to work with good quality jobs is really one of the most important things we can do. I very much support this idea. As you know, I co-sponsored it last year. I know it might go in a couple different directions. Just about every bill does that is a little more complicated. And I think this is a great opportunity to bring several people to the table and get this right, because I think it is a good idea. And it's like a great opportunity for bipartisan support. Anything I can do to help, please let me know. Would love to help work on this, push this forward. And I don't really have a specific question at this time. I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of, I'll continue to like the idea and understand there's probably going to need to be some editing to make sure we don't harm a particular group or marketplace or whatever's out there. But it's a good idea, and I think we should move forward, and I'll offer my support and help in any way I can.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Nunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Flannery, thank you for bringing this forward. I think it's a great idea. The only thing that when I looked at the slides and I looked at the bill filed last year, the definition of a U.S. good, we might need to look at that. There are industry standards for what country of origin, how it's defined for manufactured products, kits, that sort of thing. So I'd say as we probably want to look at matching those industry standards for country of origin, I think it'd make it a lot easier for industry to comply then. And then whatever, as Mr. Representative Branscombe talked about the process here, whoever's leading that within our Commonwealth, it'll make it easier for them if we match that industry standard for what a country of origin is.
Thank you, Senator Nunn. Representative Kulkarni.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for bringing this legislation, Rep. Flannery. I'm glad to see that it continues along this process. Rep. Miller was a strong champion of labor, so I'm glad that this legislation is being championed year after year. I'm hopeful that we can get across the finish line. I will echo some of the concerns that Rep. Branscombe brought up about process and Senator Nunn did, because the devil is in the details. I think all of that can be ironed out. I'm glad to see that there's a lot of different states that we can draw from in terms of best practices, what has worked and what hasn't. And that is kind of the first question I have, is what has been the impact in these states, if there's any data available in terms of jobs, in terms of reinvested tax dollars. I'd be curious to see the actual impact of it.
So I can get you some numbers on that. I don't have any currently available. We believe that there has been a substantial impact in Virginia already, but I don't have the data to reflect that in front of me, but I will get that to you.
When you do get it, please provide it to the staff so we can get it to the whole committee. Thank you very much, Representative Kulkarni. And the last question for this particular topic will go to Senator Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen. I think we all support this concept. About 2 weeks ago, I almost purchased a high-quality bluegrass musical instrument that I, for whatever reason, assumed it was made in the United States, and I got down to the last minute, I found out it was made in China, so I didn't purchase it. So I think that we all need to be conscious of trying to buy. I think it's a great concept. I do support the president's tariffs to try to limit all this foreign metals being dumped into the United States. And the only question that I have is Mr. Conley. You mentioned the word marginally, and I think that we all ought to be willing to pay more for American-made goods. But I think that maybe you could comment on exactly what you would. Could you elaborate a little bit on that word marginally?
So the federal standard is if it's a 25% cost increase, the Buy American provisions don't apply. I think in the bill last year it was 10%. You all, as legislators, could set that wherever you wanted to. But, much below 10%, and it's not going to have much of an effect. Devil's in the details.
That makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all, gentlemen, very much. I think this is a great concept. I mean, for, at least the last 30 or 40 years, some of the uniparty people in Washington have really caused some damage to our national security in the United States by shipping a lot of these industries overseas. We need to work on getting them back here in the United States. My grandfather held the seat currently occupied by Representative Sharp for 8 years back in the 1960s and early 70s, at which time Armco was a really strong business in the Ashland area. And, I hear stories from my father all the time about what a thriving community that was at the time when all these jobs were up there at AK Steel and other places. And so, a lot of these places have struggled with the outsourcing. So, I think we obviously do not want to harm businesses in Kentucky, but I think if everyone's held to the same standard, then, as far as contractors and procurement, we just need to make sure the rules are very clear. And, if the federal standard's 25%, I know we had a lot of discussion last session on mirroring federal safety standards. I don't know why we can't mirror federal standards on buying American. So thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you very much for making yourselves available here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we're going to go just a little bit out of order. The next topic will be As You Learn, Kentucky's Building Trade Apprenticeships. If you would like to approach the lectern and identify yourselves for the record, we are fairly full today, so as soon as you sit down and identify yourselves, you may proceed.
Good morning, committee members, co-chairs Branscombe and Senator Wheeler. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Eric Elsey. I'm the Executive Director for Government Affairs for the Kentucky State Pipe Trades Association. To my left is Nick Brown. He's the training coordinator for Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 502 in Louisville, Kentucky. To my right is Steve Willinghurst. He is the retired training director for the IBEW Local 369 in Louisville. Today we just want to kind of educate those of you that are unaware of how building trade apprenticeships work. Brother Nick Brown here, he has a PowerPoint presentation he'd like to go through with each and every one of you, and Steve Willinghurst would like at the end to follow up with a couple of comments, and at the end we'll be glad to answer any questions you guys have.
Please proceed.
Thank you all very much for hearing us today. My name is Nick Brown. I'm a training coordinator for Local 502. I've been doing this for 8 years now full time. I've taught at our training center for 5 or 6 years before that. And the PowerPoint that you all are going to go through with me here today, this is what I use for outreach. We do quite a bit of outreach. I'm usually talking to rooms full of high school students and young adults, people that are looking for a career change into the skilled trades industry. So forgive my nerves a little bit. I've never quite done it in quite this formal of a setting. So, and I also do want to preface this by saying, this is something that I could sit up here and talk for hours about this. I'm very passionate about this.
Got about
this
15
topic.
minutes.
I'm gonna get through it. I heard Representative Gentry talk about, the need for high-quality jobs in this state, and this is a prime example. I went to a college preparatory high school in Louisville, a very prestigious one, and trade school wasn't even on the radar at that time. I stumbled into this trade when I was 19 years old, and it has been has had a profound effect on my life and my family. So anytime I get a chance to spread this information, I enjoy doing it. So firstly, I generally start out by talking about who we are, who we represent. We represent plumbers, pipe fitters, welders. Pipe fitters do a lot of the welding, and HVACR service technicians. So I generally like talking about the trades, each one of them, as I'm speaking to groups of students. Plumbers, I got some pictures here everybody sees. The top two pictures is usually what everybody thinks a plumber does. Right, that is certainly what I thought a plumber did when I was in high school. I didn't want anything to do with plumbing. It's gross. But in reality, the bottom two pictures that you see here in this screen are really more. That's more of what we generally see in the plumbing trade, right? So you can see here, plumbers primarily install new, never used piping systems such as city water, natural gas, medical gas piping systems, and backflow preventers. And then a small percentage of our plumbers do perform service work, but it's generally always optional. It comes with its own set of benefits, pros and cons for doing service work. But you can see, the bottom two pictures look nice and clean as far as construction goes. So I generally like covering that topic so we can try to break that stigma of what a plumber actually is and does. Then I'll talk a little bit about pipe fitters. So pipe fitters install and maintain piping systems in commercial and industrial settings, such as power plants, chemical plants, oil refineries, or any businesses that involve manufacturing. So here in the state of Kentucky, bourbon, of course, being a huge industry, pipe fitters are in distilleries quite a bit. All the data center work that's been going on, there's a lot of pipe fitting work there with the chill water process that it takes to cool the servers. We weld pipe together. You can see pictures here where we're rigging it with cranes. We work at heights. And there's lots of other things that a pipe fitter will do. So that kind of plays into welding a little bit. When we get here, so pipe fitters and welders are generally, in our industry, one and the same. Okay, you don't generally have just a solo welder. Welding is just a tool in the bucket for a pipe fitter. That's the way we look at it. So at our training facility, along with training for the plumbing trade like we just went over, we'll train the pipe fitters how to weld. And here are some pictures that we pulled. These are all pictures from members that have sent us pictures from the job. Heck, the top right one was actually one of the jobs I ran. That was my apprentice laying on the ground there, wadded up in a corner making a weld. So, it is a skilled trade. It takes many years at times to learn how to weld at high efficiency. So that is one of the things that we try to focus on the pipe fitter training when they're going through our apprenticeship program. HVACR technicians, that stands for heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and refrigeration. So HVACR technicians are going to install and maintain the systems that make your homes and other buildings, such as the one we're in here, inhabitable. So, boilers, chillers, and that's not just comfort heat and cooling. That's also the boilers and chillers that go for process. Things, like the distilleries we were just talking about. They use boilers and whatnot to actually manufacture that bourbon in large quantities. So those large pieces of equipment take an HVACR technician to maintain and fix when they break. And they will get all of that training through us. So we go over some program details. First and foremost, it is an earn while you learn. So Local 502 actually places the apprentice at a job with one of our signatory contractors, which is it's kind of that's a different training model than a lot of schools, right? A lot of schools will take a tuition payment, they'll train you, but it's up to that individual to find their job. With us, because it's a true blue apprenticeship program, we want them to be on the job learning that trade, so we provide that avenue for that apprentice to land a job immediately. So they're going to go to work during the day, and then they come to school 2 nights a week to hone their craft for 5 years. Our classes are twice per week, 5 to 8:30 p.m., and our school year runs similar to a public school system, late August through, generally through Derby Day. Certifications and licenses. So while they are at our program, we're going to train in any aspect that they need to be successful. Now, this is not, we don't generally do there's not a ton of cross training. Sometimes our trades will bleed over into one of the other sometimes. But it is our belief that it takes 5 years of experience and training to make a high-quality craftsman in their trade, whether it's plumbing or pipe fitting or HVAC. So we're really going to get into the nuts and bolts of their particular trade that they're trying to learn, and we're going to help them get all of the licenses and certifications that they're going to need to be successful. Many of those are state licenses: the Kentucky State Plumbing License, the HVAC license. And then we also are partnered with the Ivy Tech Community College in Sellersburg, and they have weighted our classes as college with college credit. So all of our apprentices that actually graduate the apprenticeship program will also receive an associate's in applied science as well. So that's a pretty cool thing. I just told you all at the beginning, I came from a college preparatory high school, and, my parents were real big about wanting a degree. Well, we can give that degree, associate's degree, through this program. So they are getting some sort of a college education while they're with us as well. And then, of course, it's a debt-free education. There's, no news. Education can cost sometimes, right? Well, with us, the way we do it, our members carry the cost of our program. So all of our working members pay into our training fund, which is through a negotiated benefit with our contractors. And they pay a small percentage out of their check every week to ensure that next generation, they're the apprentices that are going to take their spot when they want to retire, that they know the trade well enough to be able to fill those shoes, or those boots, I guess I should say, right? So that is the investment that our members, we don't take any kind of, state or federal dollars. Everything we do is member funded. So, and that is all to promote the industry and the trade, and we want to make sure that it continues on. And the apprentice is only burdened with a $200 fee for books and testing fees. And in all honesty, we could probably do away with that, but we feel like the apprentice needs to have a little skin in the game, right? So that way they can say that, hey, I at least had to pay for something, to get this education. Let's see here. Pay rates. So we share our pay rates. We are proud of them. We bargain for these, and we feel like we train well enough to substantiate these rates with our contractors. So our first years are starting out just under $24 an hour. That's a very competitive starting rate. Many of our apprentices are coming out of high school or they're in their early 20s. So that is a very competitive pay rate for somebody just getting into the industry. And you can see on the screen that about every year that they complete in that apprenticeship program, they're going to go up about $2 an hour in pay. And then when they're completed with their apprenticeship program, they'll be a journeyman making almost $43 an hour, which is a fantastic middle class way of life. Now they have to work for that money. Nothing's given to them, right? They're showing up on the job site, hot, cold weather, wind, rain, snow, whatever it is. But those wages we feel like reflect our skill level, and we believe our contractors are on board with that as well. They have all been thriving over the past more than a decade, I would argue, and these wages have helped carry our membership into this new, inflated era. Okay, so benefits. Along with the wages, we also offer great benefits to our members as well. Full health, dental, vision insurance. All of that is part of our negotiated benefit package with our contractors. We provide a pension at no additional cost. And I will generally take a little bit of time to talk about the difference between a pension and a 401k. Both have their place. But we do like to think that, we're in construction. The work is not always easy. It is hard on your body over time. So when one of our members retire, we want to make sure that they are set to retire, that they can live comfortably in retirement, and they don't have to worry about, trying to pick the tools up at age 70, because they had issues with their 401k or whatever it is. So we do provide a pension to our members, and that benefit package equates to a little over $20 an hour now, and that's with health insurance and pension and all that good stuff. And then, so I got to admit here, these are my check stubs from way back in 2008. These are very outdated. The wages, of course, will reflect that now, but I would always show the high schoolers exactly what it would look like to be an apprentice, what you would expect to earn as an apprentice. So these were when I was working for a local contractor in Louisville. I've whited out some names and information here, but $15 an hour was the starting rate as a first-year apprentice when I started. I just said it's almost $10 an hour over that now. But I was bringing home after taxes about $400 a week as a first-year apprentice. There's overtime on the bottom check stub there, so I always like to talk a little bit about overtime and the requirements of the trade. Pretty demanding. When the customer needs you to work, we got to be there. If that means 12-hour shifts, that means 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, whatever it takes to get that job done. So more proof here. This was my 5th year. $25 an hour was the rate at that time. Just showing them a 40-hour check. That was $700 net after taxes. And then a first-year journeyman. This was in 2014, early 2014. And then I usually take a little time to talk about sacrifice. When like I said, I went to that college preparatory high school. And I literally, and this is no joke, when I left that high school, I was not into college, and I thought I was going to make minimum wage digging ditches. Like, I literally thought if I could not make it through college, that was my option. And when I stumbled into this trade about a year later, after I got out of high school, I engrossed myself in it. I learned my craft very well. This was the most hours I worked in a 7-day period to that point. There was 101 hours on this check for a 7-day period. This was a Ford Motor Company shutdown during Christmas. I worked Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. I was a foreman. I was running work at this point. I had a crew of, I think, maybe 20 men and women underneath of me. And, we were working 14-hour shifts. There's a lot of sacrifice to be able to make this money. And that is what we always tell them. Like, look, this money is available out there for anybody to earn, even if you don't have a college education. But you do have to learn a skill. You do have to be good at it. And you do have to show up to work, right? And this is how we would drive that point home. So I didn't change my tax withholding on this one either. So the taxes got me pretty good on it. But that's okay. So the requirements, we'll talk about what it takes to apply for our program. So we want a good work ethic. We tell them we want them to show up to work every day on time. We want them to stay busy and look for things to do. Stay off the cell phone. That's an increasingly large problem that we all probably face in some way, shape, or form. We want them to have a positive attitude and an eagerness to learn, and then they got to remain drug-free. So all of our apprentices get drug tested yearly. Our members get drug tested yearly. They'll get random drug testing throughout the year. Their contractors can drug test them at any time. So we tell them, hey, you have to remain drug-free. I mean, it's safety. A lot of the jobs we're on are very dangerous, so you got to have your wits about you to know what's going on. And then, I follow that up with work ethic, attitude, and being drug-free cannot be taught. We can teach the rest. That's what we're in the business here to do at the apprenticeship program. So we want to make sure that, hey, if you can get out of bed and you can have a good attitude and work hard, we can show you how to do this trade. And then these next two slides, we'll generally talk about the union reputation. So we get a lot of the same questions no matter where we go. For many decades, the unions throughout the nation seem to have gotten grouped into one category. And, no shade to any of the other unions, but we are not the UAW, we're not the Teamsters, we're not the teachers unions or any public sector union. We are a private skilled trades union. And what that means is that if you are not skilled, our contractors will not employ you, right? So, and that is, our contractors have that right. If you're lazy, they don't work, right? The apprentices, a lot of them will get weeded out of the apprenticeship program for lack of effort or various different reasons, throughout their 5-year apprenticeship. We do not have seniority. The union does not fight for our members to keep their job if they have been rightfully terminated, right? A lot of people think that, unions protect, lazy workers, this and that. That is not the case, at least for us. I mean, I can't speak for all unions, but for us, that is not the case. We don't strike very often. We've had very few strikes in Local 502's history, and they've all been very short. I guess I really don't need to say much about that. And the majority of our work is located within an hour of our airport. So our contractors have done a very good job of maintaining their market share in our area. Our members don't travel very much at all. So a lot of people think that if you're a union, you'll work 6 months a year, you'll be on the road a bunch. Our experience is it's not like that. Our apprentices never travel. Our journeymen, if they do travel, there's usually a reason for it. Either they're chasing money or they've ruined their reputation at home and they're trying to find somewhere else outside of Louisville or in another area. So we always cover that. I like to clarify that. And then we talk about what we offer as a union. What do you get for paying your union dues? And these are listed here in front of you. So the training, representation, we talked about our benefit package and whatnot. All of that has been obtained through negotiations with our contractors. And then management. So, all of those funds, our health insurance, our pension, they're managed also by our leadership to make sure that they remain healthy for the benefit of the member. And I think that concludes the PowerPoint, but there was just a couple of other things, or one other thing I wanted to add in here. In addition to the certifications and the education that we talked about, we do various things such as partnering with like the KDE, Kentucky Department of Education. They currently have a track program. If anybody's familiar with that, I can't remember off the top of my head what that anagram means, but basically they have a track program for welding. They have one for electrical. They have one for carpentry. And these are tests that are administered at the high school level that were designed by the industry. And we recognize those certifications. When those high school students achieve those certifications, they bring them to us, and we actually recognize that. Now, each union does things a little bit differently. as far as how they recognize those certifications. But anything we can do to bolster those young individuals, to be able to give them a jump start into this trade, we will look at heavily. And I will add, lastly, before I turn it over, we've also done the Kentucky Plumbing, Journeyman Plumbing exam and HVAC exam are also industry certifications now for the state of Kentucky. Happy to report that last year there was a high school in our area that had 4 high school students pass the Kentucky Plumbing exam, which I have never seen that. One of those came to us. The other 2, one of them went to another company that's not with us, and the other 2 are probably going to end up with us hopefully this coming year. They were juniors when they passed it. So, those kinds of efforts are trying to help bolster our industry and get the word out that, hey, you can make a good, quality middle class way of life, but you have to learn a skill and you have to work for it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. Eric, or do y'all have anything to add to that?
Steve wanted to say add a few things.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you all about this, about apprenticeship training. As Nick pointed out, the apprenticeship model of training is the lifeline for the building trades. Combining your on-the-job training with your classroom-related training is the most effective way to prepare somebody for a trade. The other thing I want to point out is that all the building trades programs are registered programs. Now, what that means is each of the programs have registered their standards either with the Commonwealth of Kentucky or if they're over in Indiana with the federal government directly. Now, by having a registered apprenticeship program and those standards being registered, that helps ensure with oversight that the apprentice is getting the training that they thought that they were getting. Not all apprenticeship programs are registered, but all the building trades are. And with that registration, you can show an individual what their structured advancement's going to be. So if it's a 4-year program, they can go out and see what they're going to be making their first, second, third, and fourth year, 5th year, whatever it be. And that helps them plan for their future, as well as giving the union and the employers the opportunity to see what kind of workforce they're going to have down the road. So the registration part of it is very key. I sit on the State Apprenticeship Council, and that's one of the biggest emphasis that we've had over the last few years are compliance reviews, because it's very easy for a sponsor of a program to take advantage of an apprentice, not providing the training, the work, or whatever the case may be. So through the oversight here in Kentucky with the state government, or again over in Indiana with the federal government, you have a compliance reviews that helps ensure that the apprentice is getting what they received. As you well know, there is a shortage of skilled labor. About 7 or 8 years ago, the General Session Assembly passed a piece of legislation allowing the KEYS money to be used for apprenticeship. And for those of y'all that were involved in that passage, I sure appreciate what you all have done. Thank you, because it's helped out tremendously. As Nick pointed out, we most of the building trades programs have some affiliation with the track program. Now, that's the technical programs that have been offered in many of the high schools throughout the state. And what that's done is that's helped push, well, not necessarily push people, but attract people towards the trade. So it's been a huge help. And again, I'd like to thank you all for the passage of that bill. And with that, I hope that we've been able to stir up some questions, because I think it's important that we have this opportunity, we take advantage of it.
Thank you very much. It's been very informative. Just a couple to start off, and then I'm going to recognize a couple people and just state ahead of time. We do have a couple more presentations, so if I don't call on you, if you've previously asked a question, that's why. And if you want to submit those questions to the committee, we'll provide them to the presenters to see if they can answer. But just to start us off, as far, and I think you've hit this a little bit, how many training centers do you have in Kentucky currently?
For Local 502, we actually maintain 3 training centers. We have 2 in the Louisville area, 1 in the southern part of our jurisdiction.
All right.
But that's just for Local 502. Every local training center will be different.
If you had to guess, I mean, throughout the entire state with all the locals, how many opportunities do you think there are?
50-ish,
okay,
between all trades across the whole state.
Well, Senator, if I could interject, all the 120 counties in Kentucky have some affiliation with a building trades program. So every county is covered In Louisville, the IBEW in Louisville, they cover 68 counties in Kentucky and 7 in southern Indiana. So every county in Kentucky does have some method of being within a building trades program.
And then briefly, I think this was hit in the presentation, but you come out of this debt-free and actually earn money versus, to say if you wanted to go get the same degree through a community college, you might have debt. Is that a fair statement?
You betcha. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then finally, are these type of certificates that you earn portable? Let's just say at some point you want to, maybe not just travel, but you want to open your own business locally. Do those certifications, if you still qualify you and to advertise that you're a certified plumber, certified carpenter, tradesman, etc.?
Go ahead.
Yes, I mean a lot of building trades unions. I can speak on 502. That is my home local as well. We have a lot of our members that graduate from our apprenticeship programs and do start their own businesses, and we offer them, as much financial help as we can as a union, and we also offer them at our school the education that they may need to help them start a business, because a lot of people don't understand what they think. I'm a plumber, I got my master's license, I'm gonna go into business for myself, but they really don't understand how all that works. So we can educate them on that type of stuff too.
That's great. Okay, we'll start with Representative Truitt.
All right, thank you, Chairman. As of now, I'm elementary principal, but I used to teach high school algebra, and I'm glad to see that we've sort of shifted from trying to push every kid to college. Every kid is not ready for college. Every kid is not qualified to go to college, and I can speak, I guess, honestly about this program, because when Eddie and Ellen and Gerald talked to me a couple of years ago about some legislation about allowing our counselors to learn about these programs, it intrigued me. And I had an 18-year-old son at the time, and I'm like, man, this sounds exactly like something he would love. And he's been doing it 2 years now with the JATC electrician program. And I can honestly say that it has changed him in positive ways. And, it's a great for some students. For him, for my son, it's been an awesome experience. He's making really good money. He's learning about responsibility. His mommy doesn't like him going on Christmas Day and things like that, but he knows that if he's doing that, he's making the money and he's learning the trade. So it's a great program, and I hope that we can continue to expand that. My son, the only negative thing is he's having to travel about an hour and a half a day to work, but hopefully we can work on improving and getting more industry down in eastern Kentucky. But you talked earlier about that sometimes we weed out some of these students, these apprentices who are not ready. And do you know what the percentage of students that start and may not finish?
That will vary from apprenticeship to apprenticeship. With us, we're about a 12%. We'll lose about 12% of our apprentices over a 5-year period. Most of the time, the apprentice has struggles understanding that, like what Steve was saying, that it is a combination of on-the-job training and related instruction at the school. And you have to maintain both of those. It's tough to go work 40, 50, sometimes 60 hours a week and still drag into school 2 nights a week. And some of them just aren't cut out for that. And those are generally the ones that don't make it. But yeah, it's for us, it's a pretty low number.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman.
Senator Funky Fromeyer.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Chairman. You've done such a nice job sharing with us the Earn as You Learn. And what I am curious about from the freedom and the flexibility side, I'm very impressed with your financial package and how you are setting people up for what it looks like 30 years down the road when they might want to be more comfortable in retirement. So you've done such a great job there. You began to touch on there's perhaps further education that a person might be inspired. Maybe they want to get their bachelor's. What sort of coordination do you have in place with KCTCS? We know there's kind of a gateway on into even a 4-year degree. What work are you doing there, or what do you have in place to work towards the associate, then ultimately a bachelor's potentially?
For us at 502, we don't have a partnership with KCTCS in the means of like a college weighted classes. We do outreach, to various KCTCS locations to talk about our apprenticeship program as a alternative for them, like once they're done with their education there. Many of the times, if they've got the experience when they come to us, we'll give them some credit off of their apprenticeship program. So if they've already learned, if they've been in school for 2 years to be a welder or whatever it is at KCTCS, then we'll offer them some time off of their apprenticeship program in lieu of that. But going a little further, we do have some members that strive for a little bit more than that associate's degree. We'll partner them with our Ivy Tech contact, our Ivy Tech Community College contact, and they will assist them in selecting the appropriate classes for their degrees. And then, as far as trade related, as far as continuing education goes for the actual trades, I spoke a little bit about individual training by the trade, HVAC, plumbing, pipe fitting. If a plumber comes through our apprenticeship program and learns the plumbing trade and they want to come back and they want to learn pipe fitting or HVAC, that is an option for them. It is open to our members. Our school it's an open door policy for our members. So if they want to come back in their journeyman years and learn another aspect of our trade, it's available to them as well.
Several years ago, we had a dialogue with Western Kentucky, and they were very receptive to partnering with our program to set up a degree program, a 4-year degree program. And we almost went with it. There was a lot involved with it, but we did have some apprentices that were interested in looking at a 4-year degree from Western. So it is doable.
Thank you very much, and I hate to cut people off, but we do have a couple more presentations. So if anybody that didn't get called upon, if you have a commission or a question that you would like submitted to the presenters, please submit it to the committee, and we'll get that out to them and get responses to everyone on the committee. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for your presentation today. It was very interesting.
Thank you again.
Next up, we shall have a presentation on worker misclassification in the construction worker, as I call it, keeping illegals off state job sites. So, presenters, please make your way to the lectern, identify yourselves, and you may proceed.
I was wanting to mention that we did bring some pamphlets for all the different apprenticeship programs. They're in your packet. So there's about 7, 8, 9 different ones. There's a total of 14 crafts, but that's the ones that we have at this point. So there's a lot of different trades out there that wasn't spoke about today, but we do appreciate you guys taking the time.
Chad, if you all could just identify yourselves for the record before you go, okay?
I'm getting ready to go for it, yeah.
Thanks.
All right. My name is Chad Mills, and I'm the director of the Kentucky State Building and Construction Trades Council. We represent 14 crafts and 53 local unions and more than 20,000 members in this state of Kentucky. And I was going to let these two introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Ellen Yant-Suholtz. I'm a legislative agent for the Kentucky State Building and Construction Trades Council. And I am technologically challenged, so I'm not really sure how to open this presentation.
Gerald Adkins, Working Strategies 2. I'm a legislative agent for the Kentucky State Building and Construction Trades Council.
Please proceed.
Good morning. I wanted to thank Co-Chair Wheeler and Co-Chair Branscombe and the rest of the committee for allowing us to speak to you today. We feel like it's very important to discuss misclassification of workers and how it affects everyone in some way or another. Misclassification in the commercial construction industry has a negative financial impact on individual workers, our state government, and our private sector. Misclassifying workers as independent contractors is wage theft, plain and simple, as it robs families of income and benefit protections under Kentucky laws. It also robs the government of tax revenue. Construction operates at a pretty clear organizational structure. Owners arrive at an agreement with the general contractor or construction manager to handle all of the site activity. The general contractor executes a series of subcontractors and trade contractors to employ a bulk of the trade work on the project. The project manager and superintendent coordinate the various subcontractors with their foremans.
In turn, supervised workers carry out the day-to-day task. There's no room for a worker to operate as an independent contractor in this chain of command. It simply would not work. How misclassification works in construction. A worker is hired as an independent contractor. The contractor/subcontractor does not pay the workers' comp, liability insurance, unemployment insurance, Social Security tax, or Medicare tax. Contractor/subcontractor sends the worker a 1099 at the end of the year and expects them to pay their own taxes, or even worse, cash, especially with the undocumented workers. The contractor/subcontractor circumvents laws that explain when a worker should be considered an employee or independent contractor. This classification is most prevalent in certain trades, but affect most of them in some way or another. The most prevalent trades are the masonry, general laborers, painting, drywall, insulating, concrete finishing, and roofing. True independent contractors are people who are in business for themselves, making all the important decisions about how to run their business. How does this affect the state of Kentucky? Estimates from a Fair Contractor report says that 26.4% of Kentucky construction employers misclassify their employees. Revenue loss for the state is estimated at $27.49 million per year. The state loses $2,021 or 26% on each employee in payments to social insurance programs like workers' comp and unemployment insurance. UI, unemployment insurance, loses over $2 million each year in construction sector alone. How does this affect the worker? Kentucky construction workers who are misclassified are estimated to lose $14,263 a year in income, or 31.6% in cut in pay. The amount collected annually in restitution for wage theft in Kentucky, which includes misclassification, is more than twice the amount stolen in robberies. How does this affect the construction industry? Contractors that follow the law and pay their employees correctly cannot compete with these unscrupulous contractors. It is estimated that the employers that misclassify their workers as independent contractors can reduce their payroll costs by 30%. Contractors that follow the law pay their employees workers' compensation, insurance, unemployment insurance, Social Security, and Medicaid, and Medicare insurance. Contractors that follow the law make sure all taxes are paid to the state, federal, and local governments. So how can we fix this problem? I'm going to let Ms. Ellen here speak on that point.
Thank you. And I would just say this is not a topic that hasn't been covered before by this, maybe not necessarily by the legislators that are here today, but there was a task force that looked into this issue back in 2020. I think it was the classification of workers in the construction industry, and they met like 3 or 4 times. And I think legislation has been filed several times that I'm aware of. I know there was legislation filed in 2015, legislation filed in 2021, and then, of course, Senator Wheeler filed a bill similar to the 2015 version last year, and that was Senate Bill 176, I think. And so we've been working on a similar piece to what he filed in 2024 and trying to clean that up, and hopefully as soon as that is available, that's something that we can provide to you all. But this legislation would take, for purposes of what was filed in 2024, there was a piece in it that would take out responsibility and the prime contractor would not be held responsible. So this would be just talking about the subcontractors that are hired by the prime contractor or a sub of a sub. And I maybe should have mentioned this before, but back when I practiced law, I was a staff attorney in the former Labor Cabinet, now the Education and Labor Cabinet, and I was assigned to the Wage and Hour Division. So this was an issue that we would often see. Sometimes I was able to go on job sites and interview employees, and Gerald and I worked together, so he might speak a little bit on that. But I just wanted you to understand kind of my background on this issue. At the federal level, this legislation would, or at the state level, it would ensure that withholdings for unemployment, workers' comp, and income taxes were properly paid. So that would encourage some interagency dialogue, which is something that was testified about in the task force back in 2020, an issue between communication with the various agencies that handle this. This would make sure that the bidding process is fair and equal to all prime contractors. And it would kind of have a test in there. I don't know if any of y'all are aware, but in 2023, the Supreme Court adopted an economic realities test for purposes of workers' comp, but it is my understanding that it's the same test that the Kentucky Education and Labor Cabinet uses for purposes of determining what is an employer and what is an employee. It would allow for the increase of revenue. So this is just enforcing what laws already exist, and it would allow for an increase in revenue for the state without raising taxes on anyone, and potentially shore up the unemployment fund. The bill has that we've been working on would have a posting requirement regarding misclassification, so that workers on job sites would be aware of what their obligations are if they are classified as an independent contractor, and the attributes of an independent contractor versus an employee. This would only apply to public projects, so projects where the General Assembly has appropriated the funds, this I think there's a part in there that would lead to debarment for multiple violations. So contractors that are repeatedly violating this, and particularly when state funds are involved. And again, it's not anything that we have available today, but hopefully that will be forthcoming and be available to you all to review.
Again, my name is Gerald Adkins, and I'm testifying today as a legislative agent for the Kentucky State Building and Construction Trades Council and their 20,000 members. I'm able to speak on the issue of worker misclassification in the construction industry from a personal standpoint, as I worked my career at the Division of Employment Standards at the Kentucky Labor Cabinet. I supervised the Wage and Hour Division for the last 15 years of my career. I have significant knowledge of construction industry worker misclassification and the economic impact it has on the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Misclassification on construction projects happen more frequently than one may think, and it is almost always subcontractors and not the prime contractor construction manager who misclassify employees as independent contractors. Additionally, from my experience, it is more frequently an out-of-state contractor who misclassifies these workers. I could speak on many publicly funded projects over the time frame of my employment at the Kentucky Labor Cabinet where workers were improperly misclassified. However, today I will only speak about one particular job. This job was a demolition portion of a job at Murray State University. The subcontractor on this job was from out of state. This sub submitted a very low bid and was awarded the contract. The sub brought a Latino crew of workers from his state and paid all of these workers in cash. He obtained a segment of hotel rooms for these workers to stay in. He required 8 of these workers to stay in each room. He deducted $30 per day per worker from their pay for each room. These rooms cost the employer $80 per night for each room, a profit for the subcontractor of $160 per room per night. He charged the workers a daily fee to ride to and from the job site in vans. He withheld 0 in local, state, and federal taxes. No unemployment and no workers' comp was paid on behalf of these workers. The workers' take-home pay each week ended up being very little after all of these deductions were taken from their checks. We received a complaint as how we got involved with this particular contractor and this job, stating that this contractor was not paying overtime for over 40 hours in a week. So just because they're misclassified doesn't mean they violate wage and hour laws. They have to violate one of the statutes, which is overtime, minimum wage, anything like that. We investigated and found the workers met the definition of an employee, and we conducted an audit for the overtime violations. The contractor paid the back wages and deducted federal and state taxes from the checks. When the workers went back to their home state, they continued working for this contractor, and this contractor withheld future checks from these workers until he had recouped all the back wages that were paid in Kentucky to these workers. How do we know that? Because they called us and wanted us to help them with that. We have no coverage over this particular state, so we could not help them with that. Additionally, we discovered that the contractor never forwarded those state taxes that he withheld to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I can tell many similar stories from my years at the Kentucky Labor Cabinet, how this story impacts the Commonwealth of Kentucky and their local workforce. Local contractors and workers missed out on the work because this out-of-state contractor underbid and was awarded the contract, which makes the playing field very unlevel for our local contractors. The Commonwealth of Kentucky missed out on the state taxes being withheld, which is a huge economic impact to all constituents in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I would love for all publicly funded construction projects to be awarded to local contractors with local workers, but I know that's not possible. And I don't have an issue with out-of-state contractors being awarded these jobs here in the Commonwealth, but it would at least like the playing field level so that all contractors have an equal chance of being awarded the contracts. I'm happy to answer any questions concerning Kentucky's wage and hour statutes and regulations and how worker misclassification impacts the economy here in Kentucky. Thank you, Chair Wheeler and Chair Branscombe and members of the committee for allowing me to testify today.
Thank you very much. And I think clearly, even if people aren't here correctly, we don't want anybody to be exploited. And I can tell a personal story of one particular occasion where I had a client that, he was the guy that the contractor actually testified in a deposition that he offered him $10 an hour with comp or $15 an hour without. As an independent contractor, and the guy, he frankly just wasn't very educated, and chose poorly and suffered a very significant injury that actually Kentucky Medicaid was going to have to pay over $100,000 for, and then subsequently, I guess the contractor was actually continuing to pay him for about 6 months. His, minimum weekly wage out of pocket. And then, I guess after 6 months, he got tired of paying him a check for not working and stopped, which is how he ended up in my office. And we were able to get that rectified through the system. But, this gentleman had to go through a very long and lengthy legal process in order to get justice in that situation. But here we have a question from Senator Boswell. Please, Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen. There's no question in my mind this is taking place, especially, and it concerns me because of the lack of income the state's receiving from all these workers. But I can assure you it's not just the construction industry. It's all over the state. In particular, right now, what I see in my area is a lot of roofing. We had some serious hail damage down there. We have hundreds of contractors coming in from out of town. And I'm confident a lot of these people are not paying state, local taxes. And so it's an issue, but I'm just not sure why. And maybe you could tell me, why isn't the state of Kentucky, why isn't somebody in our government at the executive branch, why aren't these people being audited that are not paying these taxes?
Honestly, that is out of my realm of expertise because that's a revenue issue, and somebody from the finance I'm not sure exactly what their cabinet's called now, but the revenue department would probably have to answer that question. I'm not sure anybody here could answer that.
I'm being rhetorical because I'm just making a point that they're not being audited. Thank you.
We have a question from Representative Gentry, and since we do have one more presentation, if anybody else has a question, please submit it to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and just want to thank you personally for taking up this issue and offer you the same thing I offered Representative Flannery. If there's anything I can do to help push this along, don't hesitate to ask. Guys, I've always been a huge supporter of misclassification because it addresses so many issues, as you know, including worker safety, which has always been dear to my heart. So do you have any kind of numbers or anything you can share on incidences of higher workplace injuries that occur due to this and workers on a job that have a lack of training and resources to help keep them safe? I'm just curious.
We don't really have anything handy right now, but we will look into it, and I'm sure there's some information out there that we can come up with. But what I also wanted to address Senator Boswell's concern. I think that this bill that we're trying to bring forward would help possibly get more auditing within this type of workforce. And I understand that it is going on other places other than just construction, but us as the building trades, we're trying to concentrate on exactly how it's affecting our trades and how especially affecting these publicly funded projects that our taxpayers are paying for. And that's what we're trying to concentrate on, because we know the bill hasn't necessarily had any wheels for the past few years, but we're definitely willing to sit down and talk to anybody about this, and let's see if we can get something rolling here and try to fix some of this problem.
Thank you, Chad. No, I'll stop there, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you so very much. Last but not least, we have Investing in Kentucky's Future Workforce Through Good Business Initiative. If the presenters could approach and identify yourself for the record, you may proceed.
Hello, my name is Adam Watson. Some of you all might recognize me from my time at the Kentucky Guild of Brewers and Against the Grain Brewery. We also spoke on this topic last interim, but in the interest of time, I'm going to turn it straight over to Scott and let him continue with the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Collins. I'm the founder and CEO of Canopy Kentucky. Chairman Wheeler, Chairman Branscombe, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear today and for your ongoing commitment to strengthening Kentucky's workforce and economy. We're here to talk about a program that's already delivering results and how a one-time targeted investment can help us expand that impact statewide. Canopy was founded in 2017 with a clear mission: to help Kentucky businesses grow profitably while strengthening our communities. We are Kentucky-based, we're Kentucky-focused. Today, we work with over 90 paying member companies representing over 20,000 employees. And on a personal note, Canopy Kentucky's work is based on my own experiences successfully taking a struggling Shelbyville janitorial service with 30 employees to 500 across the state of Kentucky in the last 24 years. That's a lot of time. The General Assembly has heard a lot about Kentucky workforce issues, both retention and loss of our talent, as well as serious issues for employers and communities that government alone cannot fund, address, or resolve, whether it's childcare, housing, or other issues facing our Kentucky communities. Imagine hundreds of small and mid-sized businesses adopting strategies that find people homes, put them in cars, and offer them access to healthy food, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it's good business strategy that makes money. You don't have to imagine it. It's already happening with our 90 member companies, but so many more want to learn how to do it, and so many young folks want to be a part of it. Their investments in solving tough problems don't require our tax dollars. An investment in Canopy will bring more players investing their own time and money into the problems you're trying to solve. We're asking you to think outside the box. We recognize this budget cycle will challenge the General Assembly to make tough decisions. Importantly, we're not asking you to fund something unproven. We've built a sustainable membership model that generates annual earned revenue to cover our operating costs. What we need is a one-time boost to scale faster. This is not a permanent subsidy. Why? We've demonstrated proof of concept. It is good for Kentucky and our communities to grow businesses that make money while strengthening their communities. For every dollar requested, we will secure private funding to match. To match any one-time support, we've already secured $222,500 of private funds, with major funding conversations happening on a regular basis. What do? Our work focuses on two proven tracks that directly support Kentucky's workforce. First, the Next Gen Good Biz Initiative. This includes our no-cost high school unit, Business Beyond Profit, introducing students to entrepreneurship, leadership, and the ways businesses can succeed while strengthening our Kentucky communities. We've grown from 1 pilot school to 8 schools this year, and we're targeting 125 schools by 2028. We also partner with Junior Achievement of Kentuckiana to reach 5th graders, giving them early exposure to business literacy and the principles of good business. This already reaches 10,000 to 12,000 elementary students a year, and we're ready to expand. As one school administrator put it, it's not whether the schools and teachers will want you and need you, it's whether you're ready to scale to meet the demand. Second route is business and professional education. This track supports employers directly. Workshops, certification, and training designed to make it easy to adopt investment in workforce and community as a path to profit. We already have over 90 paying member companies, and as this grows, so does our revenue base, eliminating reliance on public funds. Why we're here. This is a returning budget request. Last session, we submitted it too late to be fully considered. We stepped back, worked on accomplishing what was suggested, and this round, we're back early and focused. We're asking for a one-time $750,000 appropriation for fiscal year 2026 to scale these 2 proven tracks. The funds would be used to expand delivery to rural and underserved counties, onboard and train educators, coordinate with districts and partners statewide, grow membership to increase earned revenue, and measure and publicly support our outcomes transparently. This is about growing faster, not taking a free ride. Again, we have skin in the game with over $185,000 in annual earned revenue, and it helps secure our efforts to finish raising the matching $750,000 in private funding. What Kentucky gets. By 2028, this investment will support roughly 4,000 high school students each year in 125 schools across Kentucky. 12,000 5th graders will be introduced to business literacy each year. More Kentucky businesses will be trained in practices that drive performance and retention in a financially sustainable model that will rely primarily on earned revenue. There will also be transparent public reporting through dashboards and budget-to-actual tracking. In closing, Chairman Wheeler, Chairman Branscombe, members of the committee, it isn't about creating something new. It's about scaling what's working. We're a Kentucky organization funded largely through our own revenue with a clear plan for growth and accountability. With this one-time investment, we can reach more students, strengthen more employers, build a stronger Kentucky workforce, and help keep our future workforce in Kentucky. In your packet, you have a one-pager and all of our member Kentucky companies. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so very much. Do we have any questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. I think, considering, I guess, due to my tardiness, we started about 10 minutes late. I think we still kept it under 90 minutes. So great job, everyone, today. And let's see, the next meeting is going to be on, November 21st. And Chairman Branscombe will be leading that one. So thank you for your attendance and your questions